And I'm Vick Perez-Segovia.
And I'm Jessica Bishop.
And you're listening to Through Dangers Untold, a monthly art podcast about traversing the precarious gap between art school and a professional, sustainable art career. And so this is our 3rd year anniversary tonight.
Wow.
Yeah. And I guess I should probably just go quickly over if we've been working on anything for art this week. So, Jess, what have you been working on this week, if anything? Yeah.
So I am just working on some personal projects just for portfolio and stuff. And I'm working on a few things for, I'm working on one thing for a little show coming up.
Nice.
That's it.
Very nice. I have been mostly kind of doing just personal stuff as well. I'm not really focused right now on money making projects, just kind of projects that sound fun and that I want to do. A lot of it's centered around the cats I just got.
Yay!
Because I really want to make a zine about my cats.
Nice.
But we'll see where that goes. But I'm kind of doing just drawings of D&D characters and trying to get back to bookbinding. Just a lot of personal sort of meditative art that just kind of trying to do it just so that I'm still making art and so that I feel good about making art, but not concerned about is this gonna make me money?
Nice.
So yeah, that's about it. What are you working on, Sonnett?
I just finished a painting for my a series I've been wanting to do for a really long time. So it's done, and
nice.
Yeah, it feels good to get that one done. It's been sitting around in my brain for a while, so did that, and then now this month I'm working on a bunch of D&D maps for my D&D campaign.
Yay!
I'm like, it's portfolio pieces, it's maps, it's fine.
Absolutely.
So that's what I'm working on.
That's really cool. Are you gonna maybe make some for other people's campaigns in the future?
Yeah, I actually have them listed on my commission sheet. I just don't advertise because I'm hiding right now.
That's totally fair.
Yeah, that's fair.
We all are.
But I am building up my portfolio on that, so if people want them, I will have that option available. I am actually really excited about, I want to do some blocks that you would put on a grid. That you could just throw into Photoshop or whichever painting program you want, and you could just color it however you wanted and give it away for free because I just love it.
Yeah.
You know?
Cute.
And yeah, and then if I do color ones, then I could charge for those sets maybe or whatever. I don't know. I don't really care. I just want to do D&D blocks that I could personally assemble into my own battle maps.
Yeah, for sure. That sounds awesome.
Yeah. So I'm playing with that right now.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. But anyway,
amazing.
Thank you. So it's interesting to me that a lot of the things we're working on right now are things that we personally care about or things that we're trying to do to make art more fun for ourselves. And so this is our 3rd year anniversary, but it's also our final episode. So I kind of wanted to do a little bit of a recap of kind of where we started and where we are now. So I'd like to hear your thoughts on what do you think is maybe different about how you do art or how you think about art, but when we started this out and as compared to now.
Man, Oh boy.
Right, it's a big topic.
It is. Especially, yeah, there's just like so much that's changed.
Mm-hmm.
Not just like since the beginning of this year that just got thrown out the window,
Right.
but even in the last 3 years alone,
Yeah.
so much has changed.
It's a different world.
Yeah, I'm like going back right now in my Instagram and looking at what kind of art I was making when we started this.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I should do that.
Yeah, I think for me, anyway, I think this is gonna sound kind of sad, and I don't necessarily mean it to sound sad. But I think in 2017, that is when we started it, right?
Yeah.
Mhm.
I think I was more open to trying different things
Mhm.
artistically, and I think that's something that I've realized that I miss doing.
Mhm.
Like in 2017, I was doing more than just digital. I was doing, I was doing some traditional work too, and I enjoyed that a lot.
Mhm.
And I do that every once in a while, but I think I'd like to go back and maybe do it a little bit more, but even just doing it for fun, like I
Yeah.
think I think there's a lot of things I would like to do more for fun, and I think somewhere along the way for me, especially, just like getting older and more stressed about money and like where I'm going, what I'm doing in life, and how to be successful. And I kind of got wrapped up and I think most people go through this in making art that I thought would sell or get me a job or anything. And once you start doing that, at least for me, this isn't true for everyone.
Mhm.
I think I lost some of like what was important,
Mhm.
Yeah.
and every once in a while, like I make some of the pieces I make I really like still, but I think I for me anyway, I lost some of the spark in some
Mhm.
ways. And I think that's also why, like, I think I started making less art too.
Yeah.
Um, and that just, I don't know. I think there's a lot that changed. I think in a positive note, I think I've gotten better at art.
Okay.
Like I
Nice.
think my skills have improved in a lot of ways,
Mm-hmm.
um, which is good. That's great.
Yeah.
I just think that um in like a passion sense and a creative sense, like my skills have not improved.
Hmm.
Um but I think that happens to most people in at some point.
Mhm.
It's okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. Um. Yeah. No. I think that's a completely valid, just kind of like experience over time.
Mm-hmm.
Um. And I
Yeah.
think it's an experience that's definitely like common, and I think in the art community, especially like I think from the school that like we came from, I feel like we were meant to feel like if we didn't like go hard and like make crazy cash fresh out of school, then everything was gonna suck.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely.
And it's like I God, it is literally so difficult for me to not just immediately go into the like anti-capitalist ranting. But hear me out.
It's fair though. It's valid.
I feel like I understand where like a lot of the stuff that we learned, like the perspective that it's taught from, again, because we went to a for-profit school and like they need to be able to kind of show that like, oh, our students have been successful. And so it's like they have to be very sort of commercial based, right? Where like we have to make sure that like we're teaching students ways to like make money and whatever and be successful so that we have something to boast about, and then further get more enrollment and so on. But of course, like as artists, it's like it's very easy for that to kind of like suck out your soul, because you're just like, oh yeah, I have to learn how to turn my passion into money. And this just like in retrospect, I feel like it sounds like a bad infomercial,
Yeah, I agree with that. I think something I wish that we had been taught, and something that I would tell someone in school right now, is that one, a lot of super successful people that make a lot of money at art, or I'm sorry, not that make a lot of money at art, but people that are on the surface level successful and they get gigs and stuff like that, not all of them make their money doing art.
Yes.
100%.
A lot of them have day jobs or different jobs, or even jobs that I would say they're probably passionate about in some way. But then they also do art, or art is their passion or something, but there's a mixture. And I think there, a lot of times in art school, and artists in general sometimes give each other these vibes that you have to be making money from art and art only, or you're not good enough. And that's just not the reality. And I wish we had been told that it is okay to do something else to make your money and pay your bills, and you can still do that and also be a successful artist.
Yes.
And feel good about the work that you're making.
Right.
Yeah. I think that you can do both. I think that's something that I'm realizing now, that I'm like, I could probably do anything else that I wanted and still be an artist and still do things in art that I want to do.
Yeah.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's really true.
Absolutely.
I think that's I definitely was in that same place in 2017. It was so funny. I was in the middle of running my Kickstarter and then starting this and doing some conventions. I was finishing up my series that I'd been working on for a while. And I think the difference for me is that, I mean, part of me misses that intense productivity. Yeah. But the other part of me doesn't miss the burnout. And and honestly, I do feel like that started me being able to starting to find the things that I do like to do, like conventions, like Kickstarter, things that I actually enjoy. But it was also kind of the beginning of me figuring out the things that I don't feel very capable of doing, that are a huge part of the art business, which is basically networking and social media marketing. So it was kind of the start of me really realizing, like, oh, I didn't realize this was such a huge part of the business, and I don't know if I can do it.
Right.
So now I'm like facing the reality of that and not sure how to move forward, because I feel like some aspects of the business I'm really good at, some things I get really well and I like doing, and other things I just cannot seem to get a handle on. So I'm trying to come to terms with that at this point.
No, yeah, I fully get that. Totally. I feel like I'm in a very similar situation, especially with like trying to figure out business stuff. For me, I think it's something that I've been told by teachers, of that, like, I'm going to get to a point where I'm going to feel like I'm going to have to make a choice between, like, am I going to focus on the business side or the art making side? Like on like the art manager type of role. Excuse me. Or the art making role. And like, I feel like I'm always gonna struggle with, like, trying to find a balance
Yeah.
because I need to make art. Like,
Right.
I don't feel good if I'm not making art. Like, not, uh, taking into account, it's like, oh, if I take a, maybe even up to a month off from, like, making art because I just need a break or something.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, it's different taking an extended break from making art versus, like, never getting back to it because shit just got too busy.
Right.
Because it's like, I need to know that I'll always be able to go back to it, even if it's just on, like, a personal level and just to, like, make it because it feels good.
Yeah.
And that sort of, like, managerial side, I think, both me and Adan, I think we've been finding that we're kind of, like, exploring that more through just general, like, community building as creatives.
Mm-hmm.
And so it doesn't have to be so focused on, like, oh, we need to build a business and make money, because it's like right now where we're at, it's like that's not even something we can think about right now, especially with, like, the state of things,
Right.
But yeah, I Sonnet, if there's more stuff that you wanted to add, I want you to go ahead before I start talking about my stuff.
Oh, no, that's totally it.
Okay.
Please go.
So yeah, like I also pulled up my Instagram when Jess mentioned it. So 2017, since it was like summer, I was doing a lot of tables, it's like con season. I would usually go help a friend with, like, some of his tables. And then that fall was when I did, like, I had been kind of on a roll doing the, like, Inktober's. And so that year I decided to challenge myself. And that year I was at a job that I did not enjoy, because it was like a very, like, I felt like I had to be very cookie cutter, and the people I was working for, I did not like them because they had very kind of like Stepford wife vibes, and it
Ew.
was very unnerving, and I had to leave. But while I was doing that, I was working on my first comic for Inktober, where I was doing a page a day. And it's like kind of like what you mentioned, Sonnet. Like, I do kind of miss that kind of like super productivity where I was like, yeah, I'm like going. And then in the middle of that, I have a picture on my Instagram of my wrist in a splint because
Oh.
I fucked up my wrist from like pushing myself so much.
Oh no.
And it's just like I remember when I made it, like, having the mindset of like, yeah, it's like I'm doing good, like, it's fine. If I like hurt myself, I just got to give myself a little break and I can like get back to it, and it's going to be really cool. And now it's like I would not want to do that to myself, because I'm just like, that is too much. I'm like, I just want to make stuff at whatever pace I can. And if it takes a little longer, that's fine. If I can get it done quick, that's fine too.
Yes.
I just want to feel good about it. It's like I'm not concerned about like crazy time frames anymore. Like I'm just not interested in it. I'm just very like I just need to focus on making shit that I feel good about,
Yeah.
And then at the end of that year, I started working at my current job, and I've been there ever since. And working there has been it's been so cool. It's been such a good experience, and I love it so much. I love the staff, I love my boss, I love my manager. Like, everyone is super sweet. We're kind of like a little family. Everyone's super chill. And it's like we're a store and an art gallery, and so it's really cool seeing the different gallery shows every month and kind of like being exposed to the art community of like contemporary artists that are both like super established contemporary artists as well as like up and coming artists who like where where their first solo show or where their first gallery, like their first time being in a gallery show.
Nice.
And that's such a cool experience to kind of like see that, like, that breadth of experiences from different artists, because like it's refreshing to kind of like see where everyone's coming from, and seeing all of us kind of go through like the shift of the climate of like this field together, because it's like being so close to like other artists, you realize that you're not alone in like the bullshit that you're dealing with, which is so important. And I cannot stress enough to like anyone who's listening, like, it is so important to find a community that you feel good with in your field, especially if it's a creative field, because whatever is happening in that field, however it's being affected by the current economy, by the current, political situation, anything, you're all going through it together, and you're not just stuck alone, just being like, shit, like, I don't know what to do, I don't know what's selling, I don't know how people are responding. Or like, if you're making art and you're like, I don't know why shit isn't selling, like, what am I doing wrong? Because when I was going to like conventions, and it's like every year, like, I would always go talk with my favorite artist, and like now I like, when I go, I also talk with his wife if he's like busy, and it's always like so nice to talk with her too, because like she'll also like fill me in on like how things are going, and like she's always been super like reassuring about like yeah, it's like, we noticed a decline in like print sales the last however many years, because like people just start buying prints, and like if I notice that like certain things aren't selling in our gallery, it's like I really think about like what's trending, not just as far as like the style of the art, but also like what price point people looking for, and sort of like also looking at the state of the economy, because it's like, if the economy is not doing well, people aren't going to buy art,
right?
Yeah. Because art is a luxury. It's seen as a luxury item.
Yes.
And it's like, we don't unfortunately have enough generous rich people out there that just want to kind of like give money away to people that need it. And our culture suffers on multiple levels because people can't get work.
Yeah.
Whether you're creative or not, even if you're just working a regular retail job, it's like, if you're working a regular retail job and like the economy's bad and you need to save money, like, you can't buy, cool posters, you can't buy music that you want to get, you can't, go out and support the like local band that you like going to see. Yeah, it's I don't remember where the hell I was going with this. But
yeah, it's true.
Since working at that store, I've gotten to see all of these things, and it's been really cool, and I've been able to kind of like do a lot of different art projects that I feel good about. And I think a little bit, maybe not similar. I in a similar vein to what you were saying, Jess, like, I feel like I've definitely slowed down in terms of like the quantity of the content, because like I got to a point where I just had so much stuff at my convention tables, but it was such a variety of things. And it's like, now it's like I slowed down a lot, but I feel more focused, and I feel like there's more intention behind my art. And like, I feel like there's a bit more heart behind it, like I'm not just trying to be a machine,
right?
Trying to spit stuff out,
Exactly. And I think that's like a huge kind of the next topic I wanted to talk about was what have we learned? And I think that's something that we come to over and over again through the life of the podcast is this balance of trying to take care of your body and yourself and your mind, right? Like not injuring yourself while doing art. And then also trying to find things that you love working on and that you care about, rather than, like Jess, you said, chasing trends or trying to make something that sells or that you think you're supposed to be making. I think that's been a big learning experience for all of us through this whole thing. Would you agree?
Yeah, 100%. I think that's kind of like the sort of like underlying theme of it. You know, it's that piece of like self-care and like understanding, you know, how to take care of yourself as a professional, because I mean, sort of, you know, going back to the point of the podcast, you know, it's like that's not something that we're taught in school. And it's like when you're fresh out of school, you don't know how to take care of yourself.
Yeah, no.
You know? It's like you have your skill that you learned, that you got your degree in, but like how do you live? Not just how do you survive, but how do you live? How do you feel good about what you're doing? How do you feel fulfilled?
Yes.
You know? And it's like it's such a unique journey to like each person, but I think there's a lot of universal things that people learn straight out of school, especially because like there's like that really huge thing, the super common thing that I think I've experienced, that I know Adan is experiencing right now, people in the past I've always known experience, like even before I got to college, you know, I would hear people talk about the whole idea of like, oh, it's like people get a degree and like they don't even work in that field. And it's like the biggest thing I've learned since then is that like the first degree that you get, you 100% do not ever have to obligate yourself to work in that field, because your first college degree, no matter how long it takes for you to get it, it's like the time you spend in school doing that is for you to grow as a person. And it's like I left and went back to school, and it's like I still needed that sort of that like space to grow, and that's what I think is sort of like becomes the purpose of that like first degree. And I mean, I think at the start of this podcast, I would have thought that I would know what the purpose is of like other degrees after that, but I don't think I do. And it's like, that's not something I can really speak to unless I have that experience. But, you know, it's like, again, I think it's going to mean something for every individual person, you know, how they might need that experience if they decide that they need to further their education. Or, you know, if you decide like, hey, I got this degree, I didn't really like school and I don't even think I want to do this, so I'm just going to go do something else, which is honestly totally valid too.
Yeah.
I think there was like a YouTuber that I was like listening to talk about that, where he's like, yeah, I went to school for like for advertising because I thought it was really cool, because I thought I was like pretty creative and stuff, and I went and I learned all of the horrible things that you have to do to be good at advertising, and like just how much just horrible capitalist manipulation goes into advertising, and I didn't want any part of it, but that's what I have my degree in. And it's just like we all have like such a different journey and experience about like what we do in school, that it's just like the sort of like very static expectation that is put on people of like, oh, you go and get your degree and then go work in that field, is such horseshit.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a lot of pressure.
Yeah. Cause it's like that makes no sense. Cause it's like, no, like I don't think I have ever known a 22-year-old that knows what the fuck they're doing.
Yeah.
Whether they finished school or not, you know?
Yep.
And it's like, when I was 22, me and Alan had been together a year. And it's like, we were just like, "Buh, I don't know. You know, it's like, I like, it always boggles my mind when I hear about people from like, who were young adults like 50, 60 years ago who are just like, yeah, I got married at 19 and had 40 kids. It's just like, what? And your spouse, you know, made enough money to support all of you.
Yep.
And it's just like this, it's like, shit's wild and nothing makes sense. I don't know. I'm rambling now. Someone else talk.
Jess, are you still there?
Yeah, I mean, I think everything you said is true. I mean, do you have 2 degrees, or are you talking about going and getting another one now?
No, I'm saying, like, for anyone who is like thinking about like grad school and stuff, because it's like, it's definitely something that like I've thought about, you know?
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, so for me, when I was in school, um, I think looking back, I've learned more about art as a career after school,
Mm-hmm.
100%.
Mm-hmm.
The thing that I really liked about the school that I picked, though, was as a person coming from a white upper class or middle upper class suburb, um, I actually met and was exposed to people that were different from me.
Mhm.
And I really changed and grew as a person in that
Mhm.
time. And that has nothing to do with art. But
Yeah.
I learned so much in that time, and definitely I am not the person I was when I went into college. I mean, it's been almost 10 years now.
Mhm.
Ew. Um, but so I'm really grateful for that. But as far as art is concerned, I've learned pretty much everything afterward.
Yeah.
And I think some of the things I've learned is just I don't know. I've had a like when I left school, I thought I had a clear path in mind. And
Mhm.
like I started on that path and I was going on that path, and then I stopped. And I
Mhm.
just like I moved around a few times. I almost quit art in there, and went back to school. And
Mhm.
then I kept going. And then I was like, no, I'm just going to try to do freelance. And that was really hard. And then
Mhm.
this year I had a bunch of shows lined up, and I dropped out of every single one or they were canceled.
Mm.
Yeah.
And like because I spent like years floundering and not doing anything, and then this year I was like, okay, I'm going to do it. But then all this stuff happened this year, even beyond, uh, everything. Even in my personal life, stuff happened,
Mhm.
and but yeah, now I kind of feel like I'm back in this place again where I'm just like, okay, what am I going to do? But I think a lot of people, artists or not, are kind of in this position right now
Yes.
where we haven't been doing anything for a few months. And it's kind of like everyone, not everyone, but I guess a lot of people have taken this time to kind of sit back and think, well, what's my plan? Like, what are my values? Like, how have
Mhm.
I changed over the past while? Like, just reevaluating where you stand with yourself and with your life.
Yes.
For sure.
And I think I've definitely been going through that. And like, I feel like I'm cycling back to some of that stuff where I'm just like, how do I want to have art in my life? Like, how do I want to interact with art in my life?
Yeah.
And that's like a really big question. And I also would like to circle back and say, I think that that's a question people should be asking in art school, like when they're
Yeah.
there.
Yes.
Yeah.
Um, and that's something I never really asked. I mean, I did ask myself that in school, but like in school when I graduated, I kind of was interested in doing like children's books and stuff.
Mhm.
And like that's totally like I just like I didn't really know.
Yeah.
And then, you know, after that I went straight into doing like game stuff and games adjacent stuff. And that's what I thought I wanted. And like even now, like I still go back and forth with it. And like, but it's taken so much self-reflection and so many years to really
Mhm.
kind of figure out where I stand with all this.
Mhm.
And but also like I think I'm still gonna be doing this for the rest of my life.
Mhm.
And so I think something also that we should be addressing for people when they're just starting this out is that your relationship with art is going to change.
Yeah.
Yes.
And it's going to keep changing forever. And you just have to be comfortable with reevaluating that.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
be okay if your idea of what you want changes. And like, because I've felt for so long that it wasn't acceptable to change my idea of what I wanted.
Right.
It's like you chose this, and now everyone's going to think you're a failure if you don't get there when no one cares.
Yeah, I think that is a super common mentality because like people I feel like people have this idea of like, oh, if I don't do what I say I was gonna do, what I set out to do when I was young and stupid, then people are gonna think I failed. It's like, no, you've fucking grown as a person.
Yep.
Yeah.
And
You-
like I struggle with that all the time. It's dumb.
Yeah. Me too.
And like
It's-
there's 100% nothing wrong with changing your mind about things. Especially when it comes to like major life choices, because it's like you want to feel good about where you're at. And it's fine if you change halfway through, you know?
yeah, and I think we need to normalize this idea that if you have one dream and goal when you're 22 and that changes by the time you're 24 or 23 or whatever, like it's okay.
Yeah.
It's okay to change quickly or later. I mean, because you have to, you might go and start setting out for your dream and realizing that that's not your dream anymore.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Or you might, you know, or it might just not be a good fit.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And you have to adjust, and like that happens, that's life, and that's okay, that's normal.
Yeah.
Like everyone does it no matter what industry they're in or what kind of life they have.
For sure.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a huge one. That you're both so right. Like this needs to be normalized because we really don't talk about dreams that way.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's always like, I mean, I think that comes probably from just the way that we bring up kids in some aspects. Like, you know, in all the movies, people have one dream. And there's the dream, and you have to go after the one dream, and once you achieve that dream, you'll be happy.
And it'll actually be there to have. This is gonna sound super cynical. This is something I've learned though. That dream may not be there.
Yeah.
Because pandemic. You know? Like you just don't ever know what life is gonna throw the whole entire world.
Exactly.
So the market, and I want to talk about this more later, but the market that you grew up with, that I grew up with, is not the same as the market in the early 2000s, is not the same as the market now. And that's constantly changing. And I think it's very frustrating because I think there's this terrible, complicated way we talk about art where it's like you're either the parent who totally hates art and think you should grow up and get a regular career, you know, and you're never going to make any money, or it's the dreamer parent who's like, you can totally make it, you're amazing, you're going to be awesome, you're totally going to be a star, right? There's no in between, which is actually the reality.
Yeah.
Because like we need to talk about the fact that, yeah, it's extremely hard to make money at art. And yeah, there's like 5 people doing book covers in fantasy art publishing, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Like 5 out of thousands. And
Right.
that's the terrible thing. It's like you have that parent that's like, oh, see, these are the odds, you'll never get there. But I think we need to talk about that honestly, to say, like, no, it's a 1 in a million kind of shot.
Mm-hmm.
But you don't know when the market's going to shift.
Mm-hmm.
You don't know what alternative avenue there's going to be. There's a lot of underground scenes, and there always has been.
Mm-hmm.
And you just don't know, like, what's going to open up, what's going to close off. I think it's valid to go on this journey for art, like, set out on it. But I think we do need to be really clear, like, this is what it takes to do it. This is the marketing skills you have to have. This is the type of personality you have to be able to do this thing in the traditional way. But there's other ways too. And you may want to get another job, like we were saying before. You like, I think it's been kind of heartbreaking for me because I grew up with the kind of, oh, you're amazing kind of parents.
Mm-hmm.
And so it right? So it's like always that idea, like, oh, I'm definitely going to make it. I'm definitely going to go. I'm going to work hard, but I'm going to make it. And now, faced with the last several years, I've had to just be like, you know what? I might not. It might not work out that way that I was thinking it was going to work out.
Yeah, because like you said, it's like the odds of even being like recognized as an artist in a way that leads to success, it's like they're so slim, because it's like it doesn't matter how talented you are, it doesn't matter how skilled you are, sometimes it doesn't even matter how hard you've worked, because it's like if you're not the right person, just, you know, by convenience or by coincidence,
right,
it's like it probably just won't happen, because there's just too much. There's just such a high saturation of artists. And it's just like, there isn't anything wrong with that. But what is fucking us all up is the dangerous frame of mind of that we need to be successful commercial artists. It's like, no, it's like we need to, it's like, if we're going to make art because we need to make art, then let's just fucking make art. You know? If we need to live, we'll just get a fucking job. But hey, at least I can make art. You know?
Right.
And like,
what's sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
So, just like, what I find funny is that I am living my life the way I said I wanted to when I was a kid versus the way I felt like I needed to as an adult, like going through art school. Because as a kid, because I would do like an after school program at like a local like art school, and like we would get to talk with like lots of like local artists that worked at like studios and stuff, or that would do freelance. And I was very fortunate that so many of those artists were very real with us, and they're like, the most common way that you're gonna make art professionally is you're probably going to have multiple jobs at once. You're probably going to have like a couple part-time jobs. You'll probably be doing a few different, you know, art gigs at once, you know, some contract stuff. And it's like, life might just be all over the place. And that's just kind of like how it tends to be for artists. And it's like, if that sounds like something that you'd be cool with, then go for it. But otherwise, like, if you need stability, like, find something stable, but, you know, still make art. And I was thinking about that maybe like a week ago when I was like at work, and I was just like, it's crazy how like I remember hearing that as a kid and thinking like, oh, that sounds really cool, because I was like, I can just do whatever the hell I want, because I was like 14.
Nice.
And like as I got through art school, I was like, okay, like I have to be serious. I have to try to, you know, like establish some sort of career if I want this to be my, like, you know, my bread and butter, as if that was actually viable. Right. And it's just like, I don't necessarily, like, I think about that sort of phrase, like, that people get told stereotypically when someone hears, like, oh, you want to be an artist? Like, well, you can't be successful as an artist. And it's just like, that's, like, it's true and not true, because it's like the way people outside of creative fields tend to say it is that, like, oh, you want to do something creative, that means you're just going to be a bum and just like suck at everything, and you're just going to be jobless all the time. But that's not necessarily the case. It's like, I think the real idea is just that, like, you need to understand how success is depicted in our culture, and you need to define success for yourself.
Yes.
And that's super important, because it's something that so many people do not have a chance to reflect on, because they just spend their life surviving or trying to kind of reach this, you know, sort of pie in the sky dream of just like, oh, I gotta get there. And then it's like, once they're there, it's like, they're miserable because they've destroyed themselves, you know? It's like, you can't enjoy it.
I think that brings us like very well into where we think the market is now, because I think the market right now is extremely difficult.
Man, am I good at segues or what?
It's so good. You have a knack.
Maybe it's because I just talk about too many different things.
No, you're good.
But it works.
It does. Because I mean, even before the pandemic, like, I was looking at the market for art and I was going, this is pretty bad.
Yeah.
And like, now it's just like, well, okay. What is an art market?
Virtually non-existent at this point.
What are your thoughts on all that, both of you?
God. I have a lot of thoughts I need to organize. Jess, what do you think?
I think first, go in a segue sort of way, relating to what we said earlier. As a lot of this comes down to being flexible with your dreams and what your idea of success is. And I think going forward, that will be very important.
Yes.
Especially with, you know, I mean, the way the economy is going right now, and we don't know when that's going to turn around. And I just think this is going to be hard for a while. I mean, people will always need art in certain capacities, but as far as needing art to go on your wall and being able to like pay a decent amount for that, I just like don't think that's going to be a thing for a while. And like, I think especially for people that aren't already established in that market, I think it'll be even harder.
Yeah.
Not to say that it's impossible, but like, it's not looking great. So again, like, it's about being flexible. And I think even beyond being flexible in your art career, being flexible in your entire life, and thinking about comparing what you think it will take to be successful, quote unquote successful, as an artist in the next few years, compared to what other sort of goals you have for your life. Like, for example, this is not one of my goals, but I think this is probably a goal for a lot of people, like having children. Like, think about the reality of, you want a family, maybe this career isn't great for you.
Yeah.
As far as making money, I mean, I think it's a viable career in that maybe you can stay home, right, and be able to balance things that way. But maybe not. Maybe the kind of freelance life is going to be too stressful to keep money coming in while you're trying to have kids.
Right.
Little things like that, or you know, or if you want a Ferrari.
Right.
This is probably not the career for you.
You might want to be like You might want to trade stocks or something. Oh, that takes a lot of work.
You might
too.
want to be
I don't
rich.
know. Yeah,
Yeah.
Just be rich already, and then maybe you could be an artist.
Yeah, I think
Not salty at all.
if you want a sports car, or if you want a bunch of babies, or if you really value taking cruises, I don't know. This is a career, even for people that are super successful in it, where they're not people that are taking a lot of vacations, like not a lot, and you don't have, $1 million houses, and that's just that's the reality.
Yeah.
And I think that's something that people need to think about going forward. Again, because this just isn't going to get better, and like it's not now. I don't know when it could get better. I don't know, but that's the problem.
Yeah.
The
can't predict the future.
The energy cost, just like the energy, that's something we haven't talked about, but kind of, but the energy cost of this career is really not discussed in terms of having to wear all the hats and do the amount of time that it takes to do networking and social media marketing compared to the time to do your artwork, compared to the time to run a business. They don't talk about it.
Even people that I've talked to with successful full-time careers with companies as artists, well, most of them will admit that they have ruined relationship after relationship or something along those lines, because despite you making money consistently, it soaks up your life. Art is a career in general that will soak up your life.
Yep.
And it can cause havoc in other parts of your life. I mean, and that's not a problem for everyone. But again, if you're someone who wants kids and you're on a timeline with that, that's something to think about.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, there's just so much in terms of I'm sorry. I'm spiraling in my own head, just being angry at rich people.
Nope, that's fine.
I mean,
I respect it. I will be there with you.
Yeah, that's fair. And I think the interesting part of that is that people with money are the market.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
not all, some of them, but yeah.
Yeah. I think, yeah. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I gotcha.
People flexible cash.
Indeed.
However you want to take that. People that have extra dollars to spend.
Yeah.
But even those people are not spending money like they used to. Look at even companies like Starbucks, who have a ton of money and they're closing down all these stores and doing all this stuff because people just aren't going to buy Starbucks right now.
Because rich people hoard their money. That's why they're rich.
Even beyond that, people just aren't leaving their houses.
That too.
And people just but yeah, I mean, that is how people with money keep it.
Yeah.
I mean, quite frankly. So people in general, no matter who you are not spending money like they were.
Mm-hmm.
And we don't know when that's going to change.
Yeah.
Not as long as we live in a capitalist society. But god damn, I just cannot get off of that. I'm so sorry.
It's okay. It's the root of it all, honestly.
Because I feel like I high-key just sound like a crazy conspiracy theorist at this point, but just based on what I've been learning from folks who have been just sharing information. I mean, it's that's really kind of all it boils down to. It's the structure of our society is so unbalanced, and it's people that give a shit about art and people that care about there being successful, happy artists are not people with money. And it's the people who can afford to do that are not interested in helping the people that need it, you know?
Yes.
It's like they're just interested in hoarding their wealth, and it's like there's so much. It's
Well,
all sucky, and it's very heartbreaking to see that, like, within the art community, it often feels like oh, like we're all trying to support each other. You know, when we do festivals and conventions, we do art swaps, or like sometimes someone will come around just like buy like a few bucks from like all their artist friends. But like it feels like, you know, it's the same $5 just circling its way through the community, you know, because it's like the people that we need to be spending money to help us, to support us as artists, aren't spending the money here, you know? It's like they care about status. They care about, you know, investment, and like, oh, is this worth investing in? It's like, if I don't know who you are, or if I, you know, it's like, if I don't have some way to, I guess, like vet you as an up and coming artist, it's like, I don't know if you're worth investing in as a creator.
Yeah, that's a complicated thing, isn't it? Like, there's not only rich people doing that, but I know exactly what you're talking about, but also, like, in terms of fan communities, like, there is that feeling, I think that's very prevalent right now, that if they do not know who you are or what I mean, and this is part of communication. It's part of our responsibility to communicate as well as we can the context of our art, but like, and originals are a hard sell in comparison to fan art, but it's just like there is this feeling of, will I not look cool buying this art, or will my friends make fun of me if I buy this art, or if I don't know who this is or what it's about, will I look stupid? You know what I'm saying? Like, there's a feeling like people are looking for things that they recognize so that they have that instant feeling of validation. So, like, it's complicated. That's one side of it, you know? I mean, we could go on a lot about finding your audience and finding your market and communicating context. And I think we have in the podcast.
Yeah. That's a conversation for a stable economy.
Exactly. Yeah, because if there you go, because you know what, you're right, we're a risk, right? So if someone is like, hey, I have these harder, let's say someone goes in who's a fan that doesn't have as much money, and they're like, hey, I have these hard-earned dollars, right? I want to spend it on something, again, where I feel a lot of validation about, something that I recognize, a fandom that I'm really into, or if I'm going, like, taking a risk on an unknown, like, that's a huge risk if you are also, you know, have very limited funds. You know? So it's interesting. I mean, it's horrible, but it's also interesting.
Yeah. It's interesting because you see all the sort of moving parts that are involved and needed in, like, having a stable community and economy.
Right. Exactly.
And it's like, it really is delicate. And it's like, the moment, you know, people start kind of getting too fucking greedy, it's like, it fucks everything up, like the entire goddamn country.
Yeah. Absolutely. If people don't have that extra money, they're not going to take that risk.
Exactly.
So, yeah, absolutely. Or they're not even going to have money to go to conventions anyway, to buy your art.
Exactly.
You know, or to commission you online. Right? Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, I think we talked about it before, but the combination of the global international market, where, like you said, Vic, where it's flooded, and then the hyper hustle, draw till you bleed culture, that is fueled by greed by companies that are hiring, right? And combined with the craziness of social media, it just makes it extremely difficult. And then add on top of it all of this with the pandemic and everything, and I think like a lot of, like, most artists are really struggling to get a foothold at all.
Yeah. For sure.
I think the reality of the situation is that art is super important to artists, but surface level to the rest of the world, it's not as important.
Yeah.
And that's true in the fact of like buying art, or even think about when schools cut funding, they cut art first.
Oh yeah.
Like just in general, art is the seen as a luxury, and people just don't see, unless you're an artist, people have a harder time seeing the value in it. Whether that's true, even if that's not necessarily true, because art does have value, but
Yeah.
to the general population of people, they just a lot of people don't get it,
Mhm.
and I think that's something else that people don't like to talk about. Um, you know,
For sure.
artists don't like to talk about that.
I think art is extremely important to people, but I think they don't want to pay for it.
Yes.
Yes.
They don't realize how important it is either. I
Yeah.
think is a bigger issue.
Because it kind of goes back to that whole thing about, it's like the sort of like upper class, wealthy group of people that have money. It's like they're often like this group of people who can afford to, like buy original art because they're so cultured, because they were able to go to like universities and learn about the importance of like, other cultures. But it's like it's in such a fucked up way, because it's like, oh, I'll just buy this thing from this other culture instead of like doing something to support these people,
Yeah.
and it's
Yeah.
like, let me have this very strange, unique thing by this creative artisan so that I can show my friends how cultured I am. And
Right.
so that I can talk about how important it is to be cultured and understand art. And it's just like, no. It's so much more than that. It's like we need the system that we're living within, our government, to acknowledge that value of art and
Yes.
to make it a priority for, for
Yeah.
people to learn about art and why it's important, and why it's important to learn in schools from, as early as possible. I mean, that's sort of why they like schools have been implementing the STEAM programs, because they realize that like STEM, which for whoever is listening, STEM being science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. And then they eventually realize that it's like you can't just do those sort of like, sciencey technical math things on their own, because like art and creative is also super important. So that's when they kind of started moving towards STEAM, which throws the A for art in there, because it's like when you're learning things in a very traditional way, you don't like you end up learning just like one way of doing things. And I think that has carried on to like higher education as well as in like creative fields, because again, like what we were saying before, we go to art school and they're like, oh, if you want to be successful, you got to do it this way. And it's just like, cool, but what if that doesn't work,
Right.
and it's like, oh, but like, yeah, like in my experience, like it works if you do this. It's like, sure, you're a upper middle class white dude. I'm not.
Right. Yeah.
It's like,
Yes.
I'm
That's oh. Okay.
it's like I'm a barely surviving, trans Latinx person,
Yeah.
who's assigned female at birth. And so it's like people automatically see me as a woman, and probably a woman of color, and they're not going to immediately assume that I know what the fuck I'm doing. When people see my name written on a piece of paper, people aren't even going to assume that I can speak English.
Mm-hmm.
You know? It's just like the amount of roadblocks that like the majority of people and especially artists have is never accounted for when it comes to success.
Yeah.
Or how we talk about success in the arts.
Oh man, I was gonna tell you, or responding to what you were saying, like there is this predominant thing in art communities where it's like hetero cis white dude saying like, well, why can't you do it? Why can't you make it work? Why can't you? You're obviously doing something wrong. And it's like, excuse me? Yes, I can always learn new things. I'm always open to bettering the way I do things. Like, I am open to learning and growing. But there is a point where there's just like you said, there's roadblocks depending on who you are in your experience. You know, like there's different levels of roadblocks. And it's frustrating that it, like you said, it's very cookie cutter in terms of this is how you do art. This is how you make a career. This is how you survive in it. Yeah. I don't know. Yeah, that's frustrating to me.
It is.
And frustrating that we all go through that, you know? Or a lot of us go through that.
Yeah, so many of us do, and like it's more than that. Obviously, I do want to acknowledge because like I do still hold a lot of privilege. You know, it's like even though I am trans Latinx person, I'm still like very light skinned. And I do still get a lot of privilege through that. And I'm also very, like, physically abled. I'm not physically disabled in any way. And it's like people who have any kind of physical disability do not even get the time of day.
Right.
In any field, honestly. As well as folks who are open about, you know, their mental illness. Yeah. Also will immediately get, you know, just kind of like pushed to the back.
Yep. Yeah. That's a big one.
Yeah. And it's like to be existing in that intersection of like so many different things. It's like these are the creatives and the people in general that are trying to live comfortably, that are people who not just like that we should be like advocating for, but also these are people who have been advocating for themselves and who have been ignored.
Yes.
You know, it's like they've always fought for themselves and they've always done so much to kind of like try to be heard, but it's just like, you know, the powers that be don't give a shit, you know? They're like, let me throw you a bone so you'll shut up and stay out of my hair.
Yep.
Like that's kind of how anyone who is different is treated. And the more different you are, the harsher that is.
Yep.
And it makes it so hard to like, like, how do you even begin to want to be an artist or to be something that's not seen as, or to be something that is seen in the eyes of society as something like frivolous? You know, it's like, how do you even have a goal like that in life? You know, without just being shut down immediately and being like, no, like, why would you even think about that? That's stupid. It's like, you should try to be something worthwhile or something that makes money, you know?
Yep. Yeah. I mean, it's obvious. All of us need support, right? We need some sort of backup, backbone. I mean, I'm sure you saw, like, for the first time ever, freelancers could be on unemployment. Even though there are hundreds, thousands, probably, of artists that lost all of their income this year because conventions closed.
Yeah.
And for the first time, they're able to get unemployment, or were, who knows. So, like, honestly, that's appalling.
Yeah.
That's appalling. Like, this is an actual job, you know? This is a real for real job.
Yep.
And anyway, yeah, I really would wish for us to have some sort of fallback, some sort of backup where we would have some sort of protection as artists, to be able to weather things like this, or even weather hard times in the economy in general, to even be able to get healthcare and to get mental health care and all of the things, that people should be able to just get anyway. I want that for this community so bad. I want this for everyone, honestly.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah. And just so many feelings.
It's understandable. It's been a hard time.
It really has. I mean, and that's kind of, what like brings us to like needing to sort of get to this point where it's like world's on fire, man. It's like we need to kind of just take care of ourselves, and it's like any little glimmer of light that we can find, hold on to it.
Yes.
Because it's like we don't know how long it's going to last. We don't know when things are going to get better. We don't know how much worse things will get before they get better.
Yes. So, again, amazing segue. What do you hope for the future?
Oh man, I'm like feeling it.
You're doing real good. I got a beautiful segue again.
Like I could be a co-host of a podcast.
You're doing real good.
But yeah, so we're talking about our hopes for the future.
Yeah. After this whole dumpster fire of a stupid year that can die and be buried, I hate it forever.
All right. Where are we at?
Dumpster fire?
Hope.
Hope?
Mm-hmm.
Hope for happiness.
That's a good one.
I mean, that's valid. Honestly.
I mean, like, I think, I think that's the most I can hope for right now. I mean, I think we can all hope that things change and get better. But I hope that, me and us and we can all adapt to what's going on and find some happiness in there and find some form of success, whatever that means. Whether that means paying bills without worry or being happy in a job or achieving an art goal or whatever that is, because at this point, things are just really tough and everyone's plans have been changed this year.
Yeah.
And I think it's okay to hope for small things.
Yeah.
100%. I think I fully agree.
Well said.
I think I kind of feel the same, just like I hope that we can, like, it's sad to say this out loud, to feel like I need to think this, and I do acknowledge that it is hyperbolic, but still, like, there's like a little part of my brain that isn't exaggerating, of like, I hope within my lifetime, it's like I can see things get to a point where it's like creative people can feel validated as professionals, can get paid fairly,
Yes.
can get treated fairly. Folks that exist on the many intersections of, different identities. I hope that if they are creative people, that they're able to also get that same validation because they deserve it. you know?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I think that's one of the biggest things for me.
Yeah. That would be
Makes sense.
wonderful.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think it would be nice if both like corporations and companies and also like individuals such as patrons can really start to understand the scope of art and the importance of art. Like something I always think about is like you can't have UX without UI.
Mhm.
Because web design is art, like little things like that. People are there to design everyday things to be
Mhm.
more pleasant and accessible for you.
Yeah.
And those are forms of art, and those people deserve respect as well. And I think
Yes.
like something like in video games that's always bothered me is that artists get paid significantly less than programmers
Mhm.
generally.
Mhm.
And programming is important, but art defines the whole look and appeal of a game.
Yeah. If I
The game
remember,
is unrecognizable without it. So
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, if I remember correctly, I think it's a similar case with in comics. Like, I think artists get paid less than writers. And it's just
Wow. That's
like
crazy.
it's like that's fully an equal creative contribution.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Interesting how that works.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, in general, I think is valued less despite it being a trained skill.
Yeah.
Frustrating. I would like that to
As the
change.
yeah, I think that's a good goal and hope for the future is that art careers are treated as equal and important. And that
Mhm.
also means, like you guys mentioned earlier, health insurance,
Yes.
Mhm.
like easier access to that. I mean, ideally, everyone would just have health insurance. But,
Yes. That's what I want.
I think just being viable for more things,
Mhm.
Yeah.
like unemployment and it just yes, people want art, but they don't want to pay for it, as simply put. It's as simple as I can put it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Fully.
I would like for there to be positive change, as you've been all speaking about.
Mhm.
Both of you have been speaking about. It feels like a big shift is coming. Maybe that's
Yeah.
just hopeful thinking.
Mhm.
I mean, obviously, this is a big shake-up year.
Mhm.
I would like to have this time perhaps be a time when some of these old terrible ways get shaken out.
Agreed.
And
Hard.
that, yeah, like they get shaken off. Time for some new growth. I would be really interested. I'm honestly very curious and interested to see what does happen, because I think when times like this happen, there's an opportunity for new opportunities to come. And I
Mhm.
think I would hope for a new kind of business model. And I have been hoping for this new kind of business model since I started working, which is one, and you've both been talking about the same kind of thing, but it's one where people are treated like human beings.
Mhm. Mhm.
It's one where we don't have to destroy ourselves to make this happen, to have a career in any field,
Mhm.
that we can take care of ourselves and take care of each other.
Yeah.
And if that means then that has to be something that we build in our own way, I'm okay with that. I mean, I'd rather have the help and support and all that. But I also understand that, like, sometimes you have to tunnel through, right?
Yeah.
So I want to see more opportunities made that reflect what our values are and reflect the kind of ways that we want to work as artists, more positively, more healthily.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that it's possible for something like that to happen. I just hope that I'm able to recognize it when it starts.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, for sure. I definitely get that. It's like you want to know that you're being witness to sort of like something important.
Yes. Something that's changing all these terrible ways, or at least a little bit of them.
Mm-hmm. For sure.
And I also I want to know where I fit into it, because right now I don't feel like I fit. And I never really feel like I have, and it kind of makes me sad because I don't feel like I have kind of a purpose in art, because I have never felt like I fit into that mold of the mainstream hustle. I don't feel it. So I'm honestly kind of trying to figure out what that means, and what, like you said, like the healthy way to do this career, and the way that we do it for ourselves, and the way that it means something to us.
Yeah.
You know, I'm trying to find that too.
Yeah, for sure.
So
I
hope I find it.
Yeah. I hope we all do, because like
I do
feel
too.
like I feel like I have like a similar experience in that like all the sort of different parts of like art making that I feel like I've delved into professionally, I feel that sort of sense of like being just like a tiny drop in an ocean, where it's just like, oh, I want to do this thing. And then you kind of go to this community where you're like, oh, everyone's doing this. And there's literally no way for me to stand out. And I cannot think of anything different or more interesting to do that might stand out. And it's like, cool. What now?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
and I guess ultimately, right, you go to the thing that you enjoy and that you love, and or that you're interested in, that challenges you, you know. But yeah, it's always that stumble of how, but then what?
Yeah.
I've made it. Where do I go? Yeah.
Yeah.
I hope we find it.
You hope what?
I hope we find it.
Oh, yes.
I think that's achievable.
I think so.
Yeah.
I think out of anything, I think at least on a personal level, we can figure that out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Somehow.
Yeah.
I agree.
Well, on that note, this is our last episode, my friends.
Oh, man.
I know, it makes me sad.
Yeah.
But we have talked about a lot of amazing things.
Yes.
And I feel like we have some really good thoughts, and I'm really proud of the show. If you're just listening now, I highly recommend checking out our archive. You can find it on YouTube, and on we have a website.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, and those are listed on in the Twitch about section. You can find those addresses. But yeah, there's a lot of good listening there. It's been fun to talk about all this stuff.
Yeah.
With you too.
I feel the same.
Me too. I think, at least for us on a personal level, if nothing else, it was a good way to talk about things changing as they were changing, and reflecting on our careers, and being able to talk about some of this stuff, and having a little mini community.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I think if there's anything to take from this experience, you know, from you know, for an external audience, I think it's the importance of having at least a small group of people that like can understand what you're going through, even if, you know, your lives don't have to be the same. You don't have to be in the same situation, but like people who have empathy and that are open to listening about your experiences, which I think we have been for each other, is so important.
Yes.
Especially in times like these, especially in this like forced isolation that so many people have been experiencing. It's so important to have that sort of, like, lifeline. And then as a creative, just the same of like it's important to kind of have other creatives to reach out to be like, even if you're not making stuff, be like, hey, are you working on anything? Or like, have you seen anything good? Have you listened to anything good?
Yeah.
It's like just like talking with your creative friends about other creative things, I think is also enough to kind of like feel good, you know?
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, it'll get you through.
But yeah. I think that's my lesson I'm imparting onto people who listen to this podcast.
I think
Get
it's a good
you
lesson.
friends. What's up?
Yes. I think it's a good lesson.
Yeah.
And it's something that stays hard, that it becomes hard to do after you leave classes.
Yes.
Yes. And
Which is why it's so important to maintain outside of school.
Yep.
yeah, it's
really
hard.
hard.
It's hard being an artist. So you need those lifelines.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Oh man. Is it time?
It is time.
It's been
Yeah.
time.
Yeah. Well, friends, you've been listening to Through Dangers Untold. Our logo was created by Karen Hodo, and you can find her online at karenhodo.com. You can find me at sonnettshelline.com. I am taking a break from social media, but I am updating my website kind of stealthily, so if you sneak over there, you might see some things. Let's see. Vic, where can they find you?
So I am everywhere online as Vixtifer. I'm also like not super active on my art stuff right now. The last two posts on my Instagram are one of my brother-in-law's dog and then of my cats that I just got last month. But
So cute.
if you're interested in seeing some adorable kittens, and they've actually motivated me to dig out my DSLR and, you know, start taking photos again, go follow their account on Instagram at Bashir and Garrick, BASHIRANDGARAK on Instagram. Otherwise, if you just want to keep up with me, just at Vixtifer anywhere online. My main website is vixtifer.com, and hopefully I'll, you know, put something on there again. I mean, there is stuff up right now. I'm going to stop talking. Jess.
You can find me on my website, which is jessicarubishop.com. And I'm on Instagram and Twitter. I don't post every day, but I check it. And it's both of those are at JRUBishop.
All right. Well, thank you so much, everyone who's stopped by and listened and stopped by during the streams. We really appreciate it. And thank you so much for doing this podcast, my friends.
Thank you.
It's been awesome.
Man.
All right. And take good care. Yeah, definitely. Please take care of yourself and please take good care of each other. Please remember to act compassionately and to take action to try and make things better. Take good care of each other.
Take care of yourself. And I don't say this lightly. Take a shower and brush your teeth. You'll feel good.
It's true.
All right. Bye.